Welcome to All Things Financial with Jack Driscoll. Each week, Jack takes on all things you thought were hard to understand about your finances and makes it fun, easy, but most of all interesting. From insurance to the best way to save your money and squeeze the most out of the dollars you put aside for your rainy day. And now, you have a friend in the money business. Here's your host, Jack Driscoll.
Welcome back again, everyone, to another edition of All Things Financial. What I've been doing on the show is trying to go through a series lately of how to protect some of the assets that we have. And I was thinking in the car on the way in this morning, what I do as a financial planner is basically look at every link in the chain, and I'm constantly looking for where's the weak link. I think we should all be looking at that, where we're tempted to look at where we're doing best. Are we doing best in our 401k or in our health insurance or in any area of our financial planning and our saving? And what I'm looking for is where is the weak link and what needs the most attention. Where are the neglected or ignored areas, or where are the ones not receiving as much attention as the other ones which are doing so well, either by luck or because they're getting most of our attention. So I go through this circle of needs every time I do financial planning. And what we're on right now, the topic of, is looking in the safety net and protecting the assets that we have accumulated and that hope to accumulate still in the future, and what could go wrong. So we got into the discussion the last couple of weeks looking at what protects us against loss. And most of you might think in financial planning that's markets and volatility and taxes. But one of the areas that's often, I'd say, receiving little attention or no attention at all are the car and home insurance policies that we all have. And they're sometimes, hopefully never for us individually, but sometimes the only thing standing in between us and losing everything that we have due to a lawsuit or a fire or something beyond our control. So I always say we're trying to deal with the issues in the areas that we can control, and try to not worry so much about the areas outside of our control. So we talk about long-term health care, longevity risks in retirement, living too long, running out of money, going into nursing homes, taxes, estate taxes, income taxes. We talk about all those things on this show. But right now, I want to continue the discussion that I started on, do you even know what you're insured for? Why even buy the insurance? You know, I want to ask these basic questions and get you to stop and think a little bit, as we all should. Is this one of the weak links in your chain of financial planning? Because a chain is only as strong as what? The weakest link. So we want to find those and we want to shore them up. Sometimes very, very inexpensive solutions to fixing a weakest link and making it one of your strongest links. So every link has its own purpose. And in this case, it's when things go wrong, if things go wrong, and hopefully never anything goes wrong. But if it does, it's all you have to rely on. So when you buy insurance, the first thing I want you to realize is you're buying the company that you choose, and the company's attorneys, and the company's claims adjusters, the company's administrative policies. It's not just the paper that you get. You're actually buying the quality of the company you choose to transfer that risk to take on whatever that risk is you're buying with the insurance, to transfer that risk to the company to handle for you if there's a need. So yes, you could buy the cheapest insurance and maybe get the cheapest protection and maybe the best quality insurance companies versus the lowest quality insurance companies do indeed have a difference. Maybe there's a reason why one company is so much cheaper than another, or maybe there's a reason why one company is so much more expensive than another. So you want to dig a little deeper there on the who. and then we get to the what. So first, when you're dealing with your insurance, you have a company that you get to choose what company or companies you will allow to place your whole welfare, your financial welfare in, should something go wrong. Another one is, do you want an agent to help represent you and help you make good decisions who deals in that industry all day long, or do you want to go and do it on your own? And then the third area is, let's look at the actual policies and the coverages. So here we go. Remember when I asked on your car insurance, whether you're driving in the car right now or whether you're at home, could you even tell me what you're insured for? How much insurance you have? The answer normally when I ask, and the answer that you're currently probably thinking, I don't know that I really know the answer to that. So I want to ask it on the homeowners now, because I covered the auto a couple weeks ago. If something happens, why do you buy homeowners insurance? And then you need to look at the policies and see, okay, am I covered for that very important reason, whatever it is? Some people will say, what's the obvious? If my home burns down. Other people will say, if someone slips and falls, and they might sue me. And those are the two major reasons we buy homeowners insurance. Setting aside that we're required to if we have a mortgage and the bank makes us, other than that, we'd buy it anyway. So you have two issues. Number one, is your home insured properly? I don't only mean for enough, I mean properly. And number two, when you say someone slips and falls, what does that really mean? So I'm going to take the rest of this show and go into this coverages, what to look for on your homeowners a little more. Number one, coverage on your home, the dwelling value. That's easy, folks. The hard part is, are you covered really probably for enough? There's a co-insurance clause, penalty clause, inside every homeowner's policy. And what it says is, if you're insured for less than a certain percentage of, at the time of a claim, whatever it takes to rebuild the home, whatever it costs to actually rebuild the home, if you're insured for a certain percentage less than that amount, usually 80%, then you're subject to penalties and will not receive full payment in the event of a claim. Most people know this. The problem is when you have a $30,000 or $50,000 claim, not a total loss, and the insurance company does an assessment on the value of the home, estimated replacement cost value. So you haven't lost the home, you only have a partial loss. And then the insurance company says, well, we've determined your insurance is less than 80%, your insurance amount that you're covering is less than 80% of the value we calculate, the insurance company says, to replace your home. Thereby, we're only paying 75% of your claim. You say, wait a minute, I have a home value policy here, $250,000 value on my home. I only have a $50,000 claim, and you say you're only paying $30,000 or $35,000 of that claim? So you're going to be mad. That's number one. That's a co-insurance penalty. So you want to be a little careful on that. Number two, you have contents coverage. Hey, we used to have to deal about contents coverage. We don't have to deal with that much anymore. It's an automatic coverage. The only thing you need to worry about too much is, do you have replacement cost coverage on your contents? And most people do. So that's just the second thing to look for. But when I get to property, then it gets sticky here, because some people will say, we have rings, we have jewelry, we have fine arts, we have art collections, we have any collections. And as a matter of fact, when you look at, many people like to collect either golf memorabilia, sports memorabilia, coins, anything that you collect. These collections sometimes amount to a little bit of money. What you need to find out, if you are one of these people who collect anything, whether it's hunting calls, duck calls, anything at all, fine arts, china, silver. I could name so many different things that are collections. People collect things. You want to call your homeowner's carrier and you want to ask them, hey, I have a collection. Is that covered any differently, or do I need that covered differently? And here's why I'm bringing it up. Your collections have a value. An accumulated value may be bigger than you think. And the problem with contents coverage on homeowners are they're not normally covered for things like breakage. So when you drop items or different perils, we call it, that are covered on contents, they're not normally covered real well. If you have art, fine art on the wall, and the nail comes out and it falls and breaks, that's not normally covered on a homeowner's. So it's easy to fix. All you have to do is ask the question, and it's cheap. So you like that. But you have to ask the question. So get your fine arts covered. Get your collectibles covered. That's number one. Number two, when we deal with property insurance, I don't want to forget we're in Pennsylvania. We have to deal with either backup of water through sewers. Am I covered? We have to deal with water seeping in the basement walls. Am I covered? We have to deal with surface waters. It's flood, actually. When we get a heavy rainfall and it comes in from the surface, that's a flood, even though there wasn't technically a flood. Are you covered? Number four, mine subsidence. Number five, earthquake. So these are questions you need to find out. Am I covered? Can I buy this insurance? Because what you don't want to see is someday you come home and there's yellow tape out in front of the house up along the street and you're not allowed up. And the reason is the area is condemned because there was a sinkhole or a mine subsidence and one house is starting to shift or two, and you look up and it's your house and you're not even allowed to go into the house for fear of safety. It's quarantined off because of mine subsidence, and you sit and watch your whole house drop down into a hole or fall off onto a hillside. And you say, oh my goodness, what do I do? What a fool I was. My homeowner's insurance won't cover mine subsidence, and I just lost everything I have in the home. Why? Because you're not listening to shows like this. Your agents need to be helping guide you outside the box. That's what this show's all about. It's called All Things Financial, but it's basically outside the box thinking. So you get into these areas and you think about all these areas, and you get into the water and the mine subsidence and the earthquake in different areas like that, and you have to think very hard. So we get into the contents coverage, and what about coverage away from the premises? What about when the kids go to school or college? So you need to think about all those different areas. Then we get into another area on the homeowners policies, which is identity theft, identity fraud, identity coverage. I've talked about this on a lot of shows, but it's interesting because we don't know, all of us, what we're exposed to, what the risks really are, and how to protect ourselves. These are fairly new risks. We read about them all the time. But did you know, and most of you probably not, that you should call the carriers or call your financial advisor or call your insurance agent, somebody, to begin pursuing, how do I protect myself in the event of identity fraud, identity theft, some of these ransomware issues, all these areas. And lo and behold, your homeowner's policy is one source of solution. It's possible to buy coverage on your own homeowner's insurance to provide some of the protection and legal coverage for legal fees if you're a victim of some forms of identity, either theft or compromise or fraud. So you need to pick up the phone and ask about that, because that's a huge one coming. Now, how about those of you who are on boards of directors, individually, but you're trying to do well in the community? So you're volunteering for different groups and activities. You're volunteering to be a board of director. Maybe it's on the soccer club or the baseball team, the local school association. Maybe it's on a professional board of directors I need you to think hard here. If there's no directors and officers liability coverage provided on the board, by the board, whatever you're getting on, whoever board you're getting on to, you need to be aware, and I'm using this show to help you become aware of things that you weren't aware of otherwise. You may be or are personally liable for some of the decisions made on the board. And some of or all of your personal assets may be at risk due to a lawsuit from a decision that you've made for a nonprofit or a charity board that you're on, just trying to do good and help out, or a private board. Maybe your board of directors on a bank or any other private corporation trying to help out. And here you are, you set yourself up for personal liability, personally liable. And how about the people that deal with 401k plans and they're plan administrators? So now I'm talking to you people in business. And here you don't realize, well, what's my business is my business. And you don't realize when you're a plan administrator on a 401k for your company, that also carries a possibility or a potential of your personal assets and you being personally liable for decisions or lawsuits as a result of your being a plan administrator on a 401k. Can you buy that coverage on a homeowner's, or should the companies you're on the board of directors or plan administrators be buying that insurance for you? Yes and yes. We can't buy all the coverages on the homeowners. When we do directors and officers, we go to the boards and we say, you need to buy directors and officers liability insurance for all of your board. And we look at that and we see some people backing away from boards that won't buy the directors and officers liability, and justifiably so, because they're not going it alone, carrying their own personal liability. These are big issues, folks. I talked about weakest link. Let's get back to this homeowner's insurance, and I get to the big issue of the slip and fall. And I want to share with you, when you look on your policies and you look down your coverages, which I know nobody does. Now, again, I use that term loosely. Nobody looks at their insurance policies, but in reality, some of you do. It's just most of us don't. So I use that term loosely, but watch this. When you get out of your property coverages and you go to the next section, it's called personal liability. It's not called homeowner's liability. It's called personal liability. And that means you and your family, what you are personally liable for, might be covered under this homeowner's policy, even though you thought it was only a homeowner's liability. And I'm going to share this with you. Anybody who rents, you're not left out here. It's not, well, I rent, so I can't get any of these coverages. You could buy renter's insurance, which also includes property, identity theft coverage if you want it, all those different areas that I'm talking about, replacement costs, collectibles, and yes, personal liability. So you're in the game. If you rent, you're in the game. And it's not expensive to solve these problems. Back to personal liability. I'm out hitting a golf ball and I hit a ball and lo and behold, it went off course. Can you imagine? And it went off course. I was up against the road and it went and hit the road. It didn't even hit a car, but a car swerved to miss the ball that it saw and wrecked into a bus, or swerved and didn't even hit the bus maybe, and the bus had to swerve and crash. There were numerous people injured, and there wasn't even contact with anybody. Whose fault? Whose fault is it? Well, let's put it this way. You know those golf balls that you personalize? Well, some people say, well, I'm not going to personalize my ball because they might find it when it went through somebody's windshield. Hey, the person who hit the ball is probably going to own up and come over and say, hey, I was responsible for that. And they're going to be involved with that and might be personally responsible for that whole chain of events. Are you covered? Where do you buy the coverage? Two things: personal liability on either your renter's insurance or your homeowner's insurance, yes, it does extend to those type of things. And number two, the umbrella liability that I talked about when I talked about the car insurance increases the limits of liability up to $1 million or more. Look into those coverages, folks, or give us a call. I'll help you with this. You don't have to do all this on your own. That's why we're here. But you look at this and you say, there are other issues, and I'll point out one or two before I close this show. Here's one, personal liability. You're renting a wedding hall. You sign the contract for the wedding hall. You have no idea what you just signed to included a clause that anything that happens at that facility during the 4 hours or 8 hours that you're having the reception or you're having the wedding banquet is your responsibility. You'd say, well, okay, I get that. Well, wait a minute. You have to think about a couple things. Do you buy wedding cancellation insurance to get all your fees back if the hall's not available? You'd say, well, I don't have to. If the hall's not available, I shouldn't have to pay. You assume that liability most likely. Number two, some of those clauses I just said say anything that happens at that facility you're responsible for. Are you covered for that? Did you know you even signed that? It's called contractual liability, folks. Are you even covered for contractual liability? That means if an earthquake sometimes, or mine subsides, or fire or airplane hits it, anything that happens in that facility, you're responsible for if you signed that clause. But if you didn't read the contract, how would you know? But if you did sign that clause, what you did was assumed the liability that would not otherwise have been yours. It wasn't yours legally, but it became yours contractually because you signed a contract agreeing to accept their liability and take it on as yours. Anything that went on, not only that was your fault, can sometimes be in those contracts. So that's why I do this show, make you all aware of things you're not aware of, make you a hero, so that, not a goat, so that when things happen, which we hope never will, you'll say, because I listened to the show All Things Financial, that guy turned me into a hero because he made me aware of things we weren't aware of. We were able to identify those in advance, protect against them very simply, and we were now a hero that when they happened, he protected us from devastation or potential devastation instead of being a goat. So they say, are you a hero or a zero? Sometimes it's just a matter of who you surround yourself by. All right, folks, feel free to contact us. I'll be glad to give you a free consultation on this or any issues that you have. Again, I'll be back again next week with another edition of All Things Financial. Thanks for tuning in.
Securities and investment advisory services offered through SagePoint Financial Inc., member FINRA SIPC, and registered investment advisor. Insurance services offered through Driscoll Insurance and Financial Services Inc., which is not affiliated with SagePoint Financial Inc.